My name is Tessa Monroe. I'm 30 years old, and my mother found out I changed my name at my great-aunt's funeral. One second the chapel was quiet, thick with lilies and old hymns. The next her voice cut straight through it. "You changed your name." Every head turned. My father froze with the program halfway folded. My brother's stupid little laugh died in the back row. I just sat there, my new name printed in black ink on the order of service, and thought, "You have no idea what you already did to me. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family, because what happened next still surprises me when I replay it in my head." I didn't walk into that chapel planning to confront anyone. But sometimes the truth drags itself into the light whether you're ready or not. I didn't grow up planning to disappear from my family. It happened the way quiet things always do, slowly, like water leaking under a door, soaking everything before anyone notices. Back then I just thought some kids were loud enough to fill a house and some weren't. Mason was loud. Lauren sparkled. I wasn't either. I was the shadow between their conversations, the space people spoke across as if I wasn't there. The first time I realized it, I was 12. The gym at Ridgeview Middle smelled like dust and acrylic paint, the kind that clung to your hair and turned the air thick. I stood next to my science fair poster, a water filtration model made from gravel charcoal and PVC pipe, waiting for my family to walk through the doors like everyone else's had. I'd rehearsed how I'd smile, how I'd hand them the small certificate taped to my board. First place. Regionals. My name printed neatly across the top, Tessa Reed. But instead of my family, it was my science teacher, Mrs. Green, who showed up. She was the only one who clapped when they called my name. She smelled faintly of peppermint tea and old books as she hugged me with one arm, her other hand balancing her tote bag. "Proud of you, kiddo," she said. My phone buzzed once. A text from Mom. "Send me a picture. We're at Mason's playoff game. Big crowd today." A smiling emoji followed, as if that softened anything. I snapped a picture of the poster myself, the flash bouncing off the glossy trifold. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that tiny sting, would echo for years. By 15, I'd gotten good at swallowing things whole. I remember a night in early summer, the kind where the Texas heat made the air feel syrupy. We were at dinner, if you could call it that. Mom had made lasagna her version of easy. The kitchen was loud, Lauren talking about a boy she liked while Mason replayed some baseball highlights on his phone. The TV buzzed low from the living room, half muted but always present. Mom scooped big portions onto their plates. She barely looked in my direction. "Tessa, grab more forks," she muttered. No eye contact. No check-in about school or the honors class I'd been placed in. Just forks. A piece of lasagna slid onto my plate, as an afterthought, the kind of clumsy, distracted toss someone gives when they're already thinking of something else. I swallowed it, the food and the moment, but it carved deeper than I understood at the time. Flash forward to 17. My high school graduation. The stadium lights flickered off helmets and polished shoes. Rows of families waved signs and banners. My row was row G, seat 12, my assigned spot. The 4 seats behind me reserved for Reed family stayed stubbornly empty. I kept glancing back as if I could will them into existence. They came late, of course. Mom said traffic. Later, Lauren posted a picture from a Starbucks drive-thru. Fueling up graduation day, she captioned it. Mason didn't even lie. Ran into friends going to the lake after his picture showed Sunwater beer cans all before noon. When my name was called, I stepped across the stage to the echo of everyone else's cheering families. Mine weren't there yet. Maybe they were parking. Maybe they were looking for their seats. Maybe I was just tired of making excuses. By the time the ceremony ended, they found me under the bleachers. Mom hugged me with one arm, her phone in the other. Greg. Dad took a single photo, the flash too bright, the angle unflattering. "Sorry we missed your walk," Mom said. "But hey, you did great. We're proud." Proud. The word felt weightless, like smoke. The pattern kept repeating in college. At UC Berkeley, my freshman dorm was small with walls too thin and a heater that liked to groan. But it was mine, and for a while that felt like enough. I studied late sometimes until sunrise building ideas about desalination and sustainable water systems. I emailed home updates. Sometimes Dad sent a thumbs up, sometimes nothing. Sophomore year came with my first major research poster session. I spent hours preparing the layout graphs, clean diagrams, crisp text aligned. The faculty advisor reserved a row of 5 seats at the front. "Read family," the printed card read. Nobody sat in them. I checked my phone every few minutes. Nothing. When the session ended, I noticed I had one text. From Mason. A picture of him manning a grill at some neighborhood event, smoke billowing behind him like a victory flag. "Wish you were here, Doc," he wrote. I wasn't a doctor yet. He used the nickname sarcastically, like my ambition was a joke he'd heard too many times. I didn't know it then, but that tiny text, just 7 words would matter later. The rebound always came from Great Aunt June. She lived in a house filled with books, dusty sunlight, and lavender-scented drawers. Sometimes she sent envelopes with $20 bills or clipped articles she thought I'd like. Once she gave me a silver necklace, thin and understated. "To remind you, you're not invisible," she said. I wore it to every major milestone after that. Years later, I found out Mom had kept some of June's letters for months before handing them to me with the excuse, "Oh, honey, I forgot." I didn't forget. I couldn't. Even then, I had no idea how all of this was lining up piece by piece, leading me to a single hallway outside an auditorium in California. But the universe has a way of stacking small wounds until the whole structure tilts. I just hadn't noticed how close I was to the edge. As I moved deeper into my 20s, the distance between me and my family didn't feel like miles. It felt like layers. Layers of moments they forgot or ignored or simply didn't consider worth remembering. But I still tried. I still kept showing up, tapping on a window no one bothered to unlock. In my senior year of undergrad, I rented a small drafty studio near the north end of campus. The place had peeling paint, an old radiator that hissed like it had secrets, and a tiny balcony where I sometimes sat with instant ramen at midnight. Finals week was brutal, and I called home one night, voice shaky from exhaustion. Mom picked up and sounded surprised. "Tessa, is everything okay? I just wanted to hear your voice," I said, embarrassed as soon as the words came out. I never asked for much, and when I did, it felt wrong, like taking up space I wasn't meant to occupy. "Oh, honey," she said, distracted. "Mason's trying out new spice blends for his barbecue, and I'm the test audience. Call me tomorrow, okay?" I listened to the laughter in the background, the clang of metal tongs, the thump of loud music. "Okay," I whispered. She hung up before I could say goodnight. I didn't know it then, but that conversation would come back to me in a hallway 8 years later, reminding me exactly why I shouldn't have been surprised. Grad school felt like stepping into a different planet. Berkeley was bright and sprawling, full of people who thought in numbers, patterns, climate models. For the first time, my quiet wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. The professors listened. Colleagues asked questions. No one talked over me. Except at home, nothing changed. Every holiday I returned to Dallas felt like walking into an unfinished play where everyone else already knew their lines. Lauren had her kids, her Pinterest perfect stories, her, "Oh my God, you won't believe what little Ellie did." Mason had his barbecue competitions, his Instagram reels, his growing fan base of neighbors who seemed to worship his ribs like scripture. And me, I was the one they introduced as Tessa the smart one, as if that was the whole personality, as if that label excused not having to ask about my life. One Thanksgiving, Lauren unwrapped a high-end blender, one of the ones influencers rave about. Mason got a smoker attachment worth hundreds. I got socks. Not even the fuzzy kind. Just socks. Dad muttered. Practical. Like that was meant to comfort me. I laughed, but it tasted metallic. A week later, while helping Mom in the kitchen after dinner, she said, "You know, honey, you're so independent. It's nice not having to worry about you like we do with the others." It was supposed to sound like praise. It didn't. Fast forward to the year before my dissertation. I'd been invited to give a guest lecture on sustainable desalination systems, a big deal for someone my age. I sent the link to the live stream to my family group chat. Mason heart-reacted it. Lauren wrote, "So proud Mom sent a thumbs up." The day arrived. The lecture went well. My advisor patted my shoulder, impressed. Afterward, I checked my phone. No messages, not even a congrats. That night, scrolling aimlessly, I saw Mason's story. He had posted a video of himself laughing with neighbors flipping ribs on a smoker's sunlight bouncing off aluminum trays. "Good times with good people," the caption said. I watched the video 3 times. Then I put my phone face down and stared at the ceiling until dawn. I should have known, should have understood that no amount of achievements would ever nudge me into their line of sight. But the real break didn't come until months later when I visited home for a weekend. Mom was reorganizing a drawer and accidentally pulled out a stack of envelopes. My name was on them. Postmarked months, years earlier. Letters from Great Aunt June. Dozens. Mom froze. "Oh, I must have forgotten these." Forgotten. The word thudded in my chest. I took the letters upstairs, locked myself in the old guest room, and sat on the carpet reading every word. June congratulating me. June asking about my research. June told me she believed in me. Letters I should have had when I needed them. In that moment, something in me shifted, quiet but irreversible, like a door clicking shut. I didn't say anything to Mom. I didn't yell. I just tucked the letters into my bag and drove back to Berkeley early the next morning. That was when the pattern stopped being a pattern. It became proof. Proof that I wasn't seen and maybe hadn't been for a very long time. And yet even then I still didn't see what was coming. I still didn't understand how a single barbecue invitation would be the final straw, the thing that shattered whatever thread was left between us. If only I had known how close the breaking point really was. By the time I turned 28, my life had split cleanly down the middle. Berkeley felt like oxygen. Home felt like a room where the windows were painted shut. But I kept trying. I kept stepping back into the heat, hoping something, anything might feel different. It never did. The first crack in this chapter came on a Sunday afternoon. I had flown back to Dallas for Lauren's youngest daughter's birthday. A pastel explosion filled the backyard balloons. Cupcakes noise. Lauren was radiant. Mason was grilling like he was hosting a Food Network special, and Mom flitted around snapping pictures with her tablet. I'd brought a small gift, a beginner's science kit, the kind with test tubes and color-changing liquids. Something I would have loved at her age. When my niece opened it, she smiled shyly, but Lauren swooped in before she could say anything. "Oh, honey," she laughed lightly. "She's more of an arts and crafts kid." Then she leaned closer to me, whispering, as if sharing a secret. "Maybe something more fun next time." Fun. Right. Not 20 minutes later, Mason handed the birthday girl a mini apron with her name embroidered across the front. Pink letters glitter stitched into the seams. Everyone cheered. Mom said, "See? Mason always knows what the kids love." I stood there holding my empty paper plate, feeling the sun burn into my shoulders. That night, as I lay on Lauren's guest bed, I caught myself counting how many times anyone had asked me about my life. 0. 2 weeks later, the second crack formed. My advisor emailed me the official date for my dissertation defense. April 22nd, a Friday. I screenshotted it, heart thumping with a mixture of pride and dread. I wanted to tell my family. I also didn't want to. Still, I sent it to the group chat. Defense date confirmed. April 22nd, 3 p.m. at UC Berkeley. I'd really love it if you could make it. Lauren replied 30 minutes later. That's so exciting. Let me check the kids' schedule. Mason reacted with a beer emoji. Mom wrote, "We'll make it work, sweetheart." So proud. Dad didn't respond. But a small part of me, the part that still remembered the girl standing alone at the science fair, hoped they meant it this time. As the weeks ticked by, I brought it up gently whenever we talked. "Hey, Mom. Just a reminder, it's April 22nd. "I know, honey," she'd say, scrolling on her phone. "We'll figure it out." Lauren once asked, "Now, what time was your thing again?" "The kids might have a playoff game," Mason joked. "I'll bring ribs if it gets boring." I laughed like it was funny. It wasn't. Then came the third crack. In February, I opened Facebook and felt my stomach drop. Mason had posted a glossy, professionally designed event banner, Mason's Spring Smokeout, Backyard BBQ Bash. April 22nd, 1 to 6 p.m. The comment section was already full of excited neighbors' RSVPs and jokes about Mason's legendary ribs. Mom had commented with 3 flame emojis. Lauren wrote, "Can't wait." My phone buzzed with a call from Mason. "What time is your thing again?" he asked. "You know it's at 3, Mason." Right. Well, people can do both." I pictured the 1-hour drive, the Texas-level prep he always did for these events. The fact that my family never left Mason's house before dark. "You scheduled it on the same day," I said, quietly. "It's Saturday," he corrected. "Barbecue season. I can't move it for one lecture. It's my dissertation defense." "Yeah, but you do science stuff all the time. This is my spring kickoff." My throat felt tight. "So you can't move it," he sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Tess." Those 3 words had followed me my entire life like a curse. That night I called Mom. She answered over loud music. "Honey, it's so loud here. Mason's testing new sauces. What's up? Did you see his event?" She said casually. "Looks great, doesn't it? It's the same day as my defense. Oh, sweetheart, people can stop by afterward. We'll make it work. It's important to me," I whispered. "You're overthinking," she said. "Just do your best like always. You know we're proud." The 4th crack arrived in March. I flew home for Lauren's birthday dinner. A quiet restaurant with dim lighting, cloth napkins, soft jazz. Mom toasted to Lauren, praising her incredible dedication as a mother. Mason toasted to himself, making everyone laugh. When the waitress asked about my drink order, Mom cut in. "She'll just have water." I froze. "Actually, I want a glass of wine." Mom tilted her head, smiled tight. "Sweetie, you get headaches. Remember, I'll risk it." Lauren giggled. "Rebel." But Dad murmured, "Don't start." "Start what?" "Speaking later." As dessert arrived, Mom leaned in and said, "By the way, about April 22nd, your brother already ordered food for 60 people. It's too late to shift everything." I said nothing. I just stared at the candle flickering in Lauren's cake smoke, curling into the air, wondering how many years of my life had already burned out like that, quick, unnoticed. The 5th crack came a week later. Mom called me while I was in the lab prepping water samples. "Honey, we're all talking, and we think we should just celebrate your doctorate after you finish. Like a family brunch or something." "But that's not the same," I said. "This is the actual event. Tessa, listen to yourself. It's a school thing. Mason's event involves a lot of people. There it was, the hierarchy, spoken plainly. Mason's barbecue mattered. My doctorate didn't. I leaned against the counter, the stainless steel cold against my spine. "So you're not coming?" "We'll try," she said. Which meant they wouldn't. I hung up before my voice could break. The cracks weren't cracks anymore. They were fractures running straight through the center of everything I had ever tolerated. And I was running out of room to hold them. April arrived like a storm I kept pretending wasn't there. Every day felt heavy, like the air itself was warning me. In lab meetings, my colleagues buzzed with excitement for me. Ethan stopped by my desk twice a week asking, "Are you sleeping at all?" Maya joked about buying confetti. Everyone believed this would be a celebration, everyone except my own family. 3 weeks before my defense, my department sent the official program layout. My name printed cleanly beneath the session title. Beneath that, a line that made my chest tighten. Reserved seating for Reed family, row A5 seats, front row, visible, waiting. I stared at the email for a long time, something sour climbing up the back of my throat. I'd asked the coordinator for that row myself, imagining them smiling at me, clapping, maybe even hugging me afterward. I still had that version of hope then. The version that refused to die even after years of evidence. I forwarded the email to the family group chat. Lauren hearted it. Mom typed "Beautiful Mason," sent a grill emoji. Dad didn't read it. That night I sat on my bed in my tiny Berkeley apartment, the city lights floating through the blinds like broken stars, and I kept rereading the coordinator's message. Row A. It felt like a bet I was making with myself, a bet I was almost certain I would lose. 2 weeks out, the tone in the group chat shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Lauren. "So the kids have a game in the morning. If we rush, maybe we can still catch some of it. Mom, Honey Mason already invited half the street. We'll figure it out. Mason. Just stream it. We'll put it on the patio TV. Live science show." I typed a long message, then deleted it, then typed another, and deleted that too. What I finally sent was small, almost timid. "It would really mean a lot to me if you came." Mom responded instantly. "We'll try our best. You know we love you." We love you. But love doesn't look like try our best. Not when it's the only thing I had asked for in years. 1 week out, Ethan noticed I was quieter than usual. During a late night in the office, he glanced over and said, "You know, it's okay to be nervous." I nodded. "Yeah, nerves." But nerves weren't the problem. Certainty was. Certainty in a pattern I kept hoping I was wrong about. 5 days before the defense, Mom called. "Honey Mason needs help prepping. He's got a huge turnout expected. We're thinking maybe after your thing we can all meet up." "It ends at 5, I said. "By then your event will be wrapping." "Well," she said, voice stretching, "we don't want to disappoint people." I wanted to ask, what about disappointing me? But I didn't, because I already knew the answer. 3 days out. Lauren sent the message that cracked the final piece of me. "Mom says we're leaving early to help Mason set up. But we'll FaceTime you before you present 4 exclamation marks. Like enthusiasm could patch over absence." I didn't respond. The night before the defense, I called them anyway. Not because I expected anything to change, but because some childish, hurting part of me needed to hear their voices. Mom answered, breathless. Country music thumped in the background. Laughter spilled through the receiver. "Tessa. Hold on, Mason. Turn that down." "Okay? What's up, honey? You're still coming tomorrow, right?" My voice cracked, despite me trying to sound calm. "Honey, we're at Mason's. Total chaos. But don't worry, we'll be there. Just focus on doing your best." Her words slid over me like oil. Mom, I need you there. Oh, sweetheart, don't be dramatic. There it was, the family anthem. Before I could respond, someone shouted her name from across the yard. Carol, try this sauce. She laughed. I gotta go, honey. Love you. She hung up. I held the phone to my ear long after the line went dead, listening to the static buzz as if maybe someone would call back. No one did. The next day, I woke up before my alarm. My hands were shaking. I brewed coffee, but the mug sat untouched. My blouse felt too stiff, my blazer too tight. But somehow I buttoned everything, smoothed my hair, printed an extra copy of my slides just in case, and walked to the auditorium. The sun was bright. The sky was clear. It felt like a day meant for beginnings. Instead, it became an ending. The hallway outside the auditorium smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and anxiety. Other doctoral candidates stood with their families, mothers hugging fathers, adjusting ties, siblings taking pictures. I watched them, ignoring the ache rising in my chest. My phone buzzer. Mom. A video call request. I answered, breath shaky. The screen opened to a blur of smoke and sunlight. Backyard noise, laughter, country music. The camera flipped, and Mom's face appeared flushed and smiling. Tessa. Hi, honey. We're all at Mason's right now, just getting things started. But listen, we're going to try and head out soon, okay? Behind her, Lauren waved with a plate of ribs. Mason yelled, Break a leg, Doc. I closed my eyes. The defense starts in 10 minutes. Mom blinked. Already? Oh, honey, you'll be great. We'll catch the second half. There is no second half, I whispered. What? Speak up, sweetie. It's loud. I hung up. Silence filled the hallway, deeper than any I'd ever felt. It wasn't an empty silence. It was final. I walked inside. The seats were filled except for row A. 5 seats. Perfectly straight. Perfectly untouched. During the entire 2 hours, every time I looked up from my slides, those chairs stared back at me. When my committee said, Congratulations, Dr. Monroe, I smiled. But it felt like something inside me had torn clean through. That night, back in my apartment, I set my phone face down on the counter. It buzzed non-stop texts, missed calls, voice messages. Apologies, excuses, promises, all arriving too late. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop, created a new folder. I named it Transition, and for the first time in my life I felt the ground shift, not beneath me, but beneath them. I didn't return to Texas after my defense, not for weeks, not even when Mom sent long texts about family brunch plans or Lauren left voicemails saying, the kids miss you, or Mason tried sending selfies from his smoker like nothing had happened. I stayed quiet, moved forward, paper by paper, form by form, and when the name change confirmation finally came in warm from the printer and sharp with ink, I felt something settle inside me. Not peace, but certainty. So when the call came from a number I hadn't seen in years, the chapel coordinator in Dallas, I answered. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. I'm sorry to tell you this, but your great-aunt June passed away last night. Her service will be next week. For a moment, everything stilled. June. The one person who wrote me letters when no one else did. The one person who saw me, who remembered me. I knew immediately I would go. I didn't tell my family. I didn't need to. The chapel was small, tucked between a row of old oak trees and a quiet parking lot where shadows shifted across concrete. Inside, the air was cool, heavy with lilies and clean wood polish. I arrived early enough to choose a seat near the front, early enough to breathe before they filled the room. The program rested in my lap. June Walker service, attended by Dr. Tessa Monroe. Seeing my new name beside hers made my throat tighten. June had believed in my future long before I had a chance to shape it. Part of me wished she could see me now. Another part felt like she already had. The door creaked open. Footsteps. Whispered voices. My family. They entered the chapel like a wave, Lauren first carrying her giant purse. Dad behind her shoulders hunched, Mason trailing with his hands shoved into his pockets, and Mom immaculate as always, scanning the room like she was appraising it. Her eyes landed on me instantly. She froze. Tessa. Her voice cracked like ice. I lifted my gaze slowly, said nothing. Then she saw it, the program in my hands, or more accurately, the name on it. Her face twisted, not in grief, not in recognition, but in offense. You changed your name. She didn't whisper. The words sliced through the chapel loud enough that 2 people in the second row turned around. My father stiffened beside her. Lauren blinked as if trying to process the print. Mason let out a tiny strangled laugh, one he instantly swallowed when he saw I wasn't reacting. I let my breath out steady and unshaken. Yes, I said. Mom took a half step forward, voice low sharp. When were you planning to tell us? I tilted my head just barely. When were you planning to show up? Her mouth opened, but before she could speak, the chapel attendant raised a hand. We're beginning. Please take your seats. They had no choice but to sit behind me, not beside me. The first time in my life the seating arrangement finally reflected the emotional truth. As the minister spoke, I didn't turn around, not once, but I felt their eyes on me the entire time, burning questions they suddenly had no right to ask. Halfway through the service, the lights dimmed slightly, the candles flickering in the front row. I imagined June there, small and gentle, her fingers folded over the necklace she'd given me. I felt her presence like a hand on my shoulder, steadying, reminding me. I stayed still, silent, present. When the final hymn ended, people rose and drifted toward the exit. I stood smoothing the edge of the program, preparing to leave without a word. But Mom caught up to me in the aisle. Tessa, wait. She grasped my arm lightly, the way you'd touch something fragile but frustrating. You can't be serious about this. Changing your name. Cutting us off. Doing all this without a conversation. I turned, meeting her eyes. The same eyes that had skimmed past me for years. Mom, I said, voice calm but cold. I didn't do anything behind your back. Then what is this? Her hand shook as she held up the program. What am I supposed to tell people? Something inside me snapped, not loudly, but cleanly. You're supposed to tell them the truth, I said. That you weren't there, for a lot of things. And eventually, I stopped giving you the chance. Dad stepped closer. Tessa, let's be reasonable. I cut him off with a look. He flinched. Lauren's voice rose behind them. You didn't have to go this far. I nodded once. I didn't go far. I went where I was seen. Mason tried to interject, lifting his hands like some peacekeeper. Look, Tess, maybe we all messed up, but I leveled my gaze at him. You didn't mess up. You made choices. My eyes drifted between the 3 of them. All of you did. The parking lot door swung open, a gust of warm Texas air rolling in. I stepped toward it. Don't walk away, Mom whispered, desperate now. I paused at the threshold, one hand on the railing. I'm not walking away, I said. I walked toward myself. There's a difference. Outside sunlight hit me like a truth I should have stood for years ago. I walked across the lot to my rental car, feeling their eyes on my back, feeling their confusion curdle into something like fear. Fear of losing control, fear of losing access, fear of realizing the daughter they ignored had stopped waiting for them. As I opened the door, Lauren called out, voice thin, "So what now? You're just gone?" I looked over my shoulder. "No," I said softly. "I'm done being lost." And then I closed the door. A reflection in the glass caught my eye. My own face, calm, steady. My new name printed on the program in my hand. For the first time in my life, it looked right. The engine hummed, the heat shimmered off the pavement, and as I pulled away from the chapel, I felt something rising through my chest, slow and sharp. Not anger, not bitterness, a cold, quiet clarity, the kind that comes right before a new beginning. I didn't go far after leaving the chapel. I drove to a quiet corner of the parking lot, turned off the engine, and let the silence settle around me like a thin layer of dust. It wasn't grief. It wasn't a shock. It was something cleaner, sharper. A line finally drawn. 2 days later, the attorney's office called. "Dr. Monroe, we're ready to proceed with the reading of Ms. Walker's will." Dr. Monroe. My name. My choice. And no one could take it back. The office sat on the 3rd floor of a faded brick building downtown, the kind with humming lights and carpet that had seen too many years. When I walked in, the Reed family turned toward me as if they were expecting the ghost of someone they used to know. Mom's face tightened instantly. Lauren looked nervous. Mason kept smoothing the front of his shirt. The attorney, a slim man with wire-framed glasses, shuffled the papers in front of him. "Let's begin." Most of the will was simple donations, instructions, a few sentimental pieces left to distant relatives. Then he paused. For her grandniece, he read, "I leave the cabin by Lake Winslow, along with the remaining savings account, to be transferred to Dr. Tessa Monroe." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then Mom whispered, "Who?" even though she already knew the answer. The attorney turned to me. "Ms. Monroe, we'll need a copy of your updated ID to finalize the transfer." Updated ID. Legal recognition. Paperwork that didn't bend to guilt or denial. Lauren blinked hard. "She knew June knew you changed your name." I didn't look at her. I told her before I told anyone else. Mom shook her head slowly like she was trying to rewrite the moment by sheer force. "This is ridiculous. She meant Tessa Reed." The attorney answered before I could. She specified the legal name. "This cannot be contested." I felt the shift happen not in me, but in them. A crack in the certainty they'd always carried that I belonged to them, under them, beneath them. After the meeting, I drove to the cabin. Washington was colder than Dallas mist curling over the lake like breath on glass. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled like cedar and old books. On the table sat an envelope with my name, my real name, written in June's handwriting. Inside, a short letter. "Tessa, a name is not a rebellion, it's a direction. Go where you are valued. Love, June." I folded it, gently smoothing the crease with my thumb. My phone buzzed then. A call from Mom. Carol Reed glowing on the screen like a warning. I let it ring, then fade, then fall into silence. They thought losing them would break me, but all they did was hand me the freedom to walk away. Standing on the cabin porch that night, the lake dark and still beneath the moonlight, I realized something simple. Some endings aren't tragedies. They're exits. And sometimes you don't need permission to leave a story you were never really written into. I took one last look at my phone, the missed calls piling up the name Mom. Carol Reed, hovering like a shadow I no longer stepped into. Then I turned the screen off and breathed, really breathed for the first time in years. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, subscribe. This story isn't over.